All right, welcome back to the Applied Leadership Podcast. My name is Brandon, as always, with my good friend Blayne, where we do two friends, one question, half an hour, zero script. And Blayne, do I have a wonderful question for us this time around? And it came by way of a friend, a neighbor, Tim. We were over at his house at a nice little barbecue, and Tim is a small business owner as well. Just so by happenstance, Tim's wife Sarah is also our bookkeeper. She is also a small business owner. The Barstads, wonderful people, have an amazing family. And Tim is looking at bringing on a partner. He's been doing his own small business for some time. And we were sitting there having a beer, and he just said, like, "How did you choose your partner? I'm baffled by this. I just don't even know where to start." So that is going to be our question for today. And admittedly, I got a little bit of time to answer the question with him, although I know for a fact that you and I have both had an opportunity to chat with many people as they consider starting their own businesses. And so that's the question. How did you choose your business partner? How do you choose a good partner?
Whew. That's a juicy one. I like it a lot. I have a couple of quick thoughts right off the top of my head before we get into particulars. I will say for me, at least, I have enjoyed being a small business owner, being in business and being in the creative process with a partner so much more than I have without. This has been much more fun, much more rewarding, much more productive, and I think by any measurable account, more successful in doing this with a business partner. And I think since my time outside the Army, I guess you could say professionally, at least, I've had maybe two business partners, and that's it. And I've always thought that you should be very, very, very serious and very selective about being business partners. Mm-hmm. And the first, I guess I would have to say, is JJ Pinter, who was with me in the early days at Team RWB. And so I was employee number one. JJ came in as employee number two. And for a good while, and really, I guess for my whole time there, we were effectively business partners in helping to lead that organization. And for those of you that don't know, JJ was also my roommate at West Point, so we go way back. Mm-hmm. And I had a lot of history with him as a person, and then you. And before getting into any of the particulars, I would say that when you and I joined forces, I was at a place, and you can tell the story from your perspective if you want, but I had been consulting on my own for a couple of years and had a measure of success, at least in terms of getting some clients and doing some decent work and making a living. And I was really kind of ready to get my resume back out into the world and go look for a kind of a regular capital J job, because I just wasn't feeling as fulfilled as I wanted to being on my own. So without going into what kind of partner I would want or one should look for, I would just say that, at least for me, and I think for a lot of people like me, having a good partner makes all of this so much more doable and so much more enjoyable.
Yeah. I mean, it's funny because I never saw myself really becoming a business owner. This was not some part of any kind of master plan in my mind. In fact, another good friend of ours, another being in addition to JJ, Caroline Angel, who is also a good friend of ours, and we did a lot of great work together at Team Red, White, and Blue. I was at a point when we reconnected where I think Caroline was kind of talking to both of us and saying, have you talked to Blayne in a while? And I said, no, I actually haven't reconnected with him, in a little bit, because we had both kind of gone our separate ways after, the years that we had spent together at Team Red, White, and Blue. And I was working at the Tennyson Center for Children here in Colorado. And so I was doing some of that kind of stuff. And I knew that my time was coming to an end there while you had been at GoRuck for a period of time. And then you started your own consulting business, and Caroline kept saying to me, like, hey, I was talking to Blayne just recently. Have you talked to Blayne recently? I'm like, no, I haven't. She's like, oh, you should really give him a call. It's like, oh, okay. And so we ended up reconnecting, and I knew that my time at Tennyson was coming to a close, and I didn't really know what I was going to do, quite honestly. In fact, I left Tennyson with no real plan. Um, and I just was kind of open to what the next phase of the journey was going to be, and I had an inkling that I was going to apply for a Master's of Divinity program at Denver Seminary, and that was kind of it. And you and I ended up having a conversation, and I think it was sometime in October of 2019. And I won't forget this. I was actually folding laundry while we were talking, and I had a lot of laundry to fold because, surprisingly, our short catch-up conversation, I think, turned into like an hour and a half. And
it might have been more. Yeah.
I mean, it was a long conversation, and we were just catching up on how things were going and whatnot. And you told me, yeah, I'm doing this kind of gig, and it's okay, but I'm not sure that I'm going to continue it. And and it was something that I was considering. I was like, maybe I'll get into consulting. I could see that being enjoyable. And I think that one conversation turned into many conversations, turned into firing back and forth some thoughts and emails and Google Docs getting going. And then it came to a point where you and I both said we should probably sit down together and really take this seriously. And I told Tim a little bit of this story, and I think it's really, I love sharing this story. I got on a plane to Tampa, and we locked ourselves in a room around a whiteboard for 2 or 3 days, and we had a no kidding agenda, a real deal business meeting as friends to discover what could this look like and should we do this.
Yeah. Yeah. I have the fortune of telling this story to lots of people because we do get pinged somewhat regularly now by people that are looking to start a business or maybe have a business partner. And I share some version or some portion of this because I'm actually really proud of the way that we did it. In that we didn't just assume that we've worked together before, we like each other, we can do this. I think we both had a fair amount of trepidation around it, or at least we took it really seriously in the sense that this was not the kind of thing that we wanted to do and 3 or 4 months later find out we don't want to do it. We didn't really want to have a false start. Mm-hmm. And I think maybe just to get into what maybe you should look for, I will say that what I was looking for was a serious kind of long-term commitment. If I was going to forego working in the commercial space and having a nice salary and a pension or a 401k and medical benefits and all of that to be in business with another person or share my business with another person, I wanted to do it very seriously. I wanted to do it in a way that we could be good at it, be proud of the work we were doing, and do it for a long time, because we only get so many years on this earth. And at that point, I think we were both over 40. And I don't think we were in a place where we wanted to be kind of dilly-dallying or just playing around with some ideas. If we were going to do it, we were going to be serious about it. And so, like you said, we took a few personality profiles. We shared our results with one another. We had a whole agenda and list of questions that we felt we had to address. And, some of the conversation was very exciting around what we could do together and what we could bring to the table if we worked together. And that was all super positive and very, almost thrilling. But we also had to address some questions about, well, you live in Denver and I live in Tampa at the time. And we asked each other, I remember, what about working with me tends to be frustrating to you, or what kinds of work environments feel like a wet blanket on you, and what kinds of environments really make you feel alive.
Yep.
And you have to do that, I think. So for me, I would say you've got to really think about the long term, because just like in a romantic or a life partnership type of relationship, this is going to be a person or a small group of people you're going to be spending much of your life with. You're going to be in the wins and the losses and the toil and hours every week of your life. You're going to, share hotel rooms, in our case, if you're frugal, and spend lots and lots of time together. And you better be serious about that commitment before you jump into it. And then the other maybe just top level thing I want to throw out is and JJ and I used to talk about this a lot, is you really need to be in a partnership with somebody who you have very closely aligned values, and you need to want a lot of the same things out of life and value the same things out of life, because having a business isn't just a business. It's you're now kind of sharing a life with this person because your business is going to impact all of that. So you really want to have really closely aligned values and maybe worldviews in some ways, but you probably should have complementary skills and attributes as well. And so I would say look for somebody where you feel very tightly aligned as people, as humans, in terms of what you value, what you want to get out of the business, what you want to get out of life, your goals for owning and having a business. But if you're just, mirror images of one another, that could potentially be problematic, because not only might you butt heads over things that you both feel really strongly about, but you may have huge blind spots that neither of you are really able to cover down on because you don't have complementary enough dispositions or experiences or skill sets. So aligned in that way, complementary in the other way.
Yeah, I think that was something that we felt very strongly about, and I'm glad that you brought up the conversations that we had. That I always tell everybody about that specific question. What about me makes it hard to work with me sometimes, or ways that that frustrate, and I will never forget your answer, and I'm going to share it, because you said sometimes your energy, your intensity can really feel quite exhausting to me. And I was like, okay, that's really good feedback. I need to modulate that, because I'm not trying to blow anyone's face off in every conversation. I know that I can be pretty animated. But I just felt like that was really valuable and something that I keep as an active reminder. But in addition to that, I appreciate the fact that you talk about, aligned yet complementary. And I would say I'm really proud of the fact that we did not take for granted the fact that we had already had, 10 years of history between us. We met as two sales professionals at Ameripath, which is a cancer, cancer diagnostic subdivision of Quest Diagnostics, and we worked together as peers in that environment. And then you asked me to join Team Red, White, and Blue, and I worked for you in that environment. And we got different looks. Is my point? We got different looks in different circumstances, and yet we didn't take that for granted. Just saying, and I wasn't looking for that, right? I remember in one of our conversations that we had, I think I just expressed I'm at a point in my life where I feel like it's an opportunity for me to, for lack of a better term, be a number one. I don't want to work for somebody. I want to put myself out there and take myself to task. I want to challenge myself. I believe that I can do it. And because up until then, I had been, working directly for a CEO, whether it was in your circumstance or when I was at Tennyson, and I wanted to take that to task. And that conversation was very, very quick and very short, because as I recall, you expressed in reply, well, I'm looking for a partner. I'm looking for a 50-50 partner. I'm not looking for another kind of model. And I just say, it would have been easy to take it for granted, right?
Yeah.
But I think I remember another thing that we said was we actually put, I think it was a 2-hour block on our itinerary for our time together in Tampa that was just called Difficult Conversations.
Yeah. Yeah, and I don't remember them turning out to be that difficult, maybe just based on the nature of our relationship or the way we approached it. But there was a level of candor that had to be expressed there. And I remember you saying, look, I'm ready to be the guy. And it happened to fit well in that moment because, I was ready for you to be the guy. Like I saw that in you, and I wanted a real partner in the relationship. So it fit well in our case, but that may not be the case for everybody. So I think not taking those things for granted or leaving them unsaid is a smart way to approach that. And when it comes to business, I mean, I'm not the world's, foremost authority on business, but I've done it long enough to know that there's a lot to it. There are many facets to being a business owner, to running a business, everything from how much money do you need to make to reasonably support your family? Are you thinking about the tax implications of these things? Do you have a plan to bring other people in to help you in areas where maybe neither one of you are particularly good? So at this moment, now that we're nearly 4 years in, the two of us are still the partners in the business, but we have the wonderful Sarah Holzab, who's joined us back in April and contributes on a daily basis to the work that we do. Yeah, shout out to Sarah. We have Sarah Barstad, who you already mentioned, who we eventually had to hand off kind of our financial management and bookkeeping to make sure that we're keeping all of that tight. We have Rebecca Wilkins, who does an amazing job with our visual and our graphic design stuff. Nick Shrine and Kenny have helped with audio and video and putting things together for us. So we're starting to build a little team, a little tribe of our own of people that are really good at things that we're not as good at. And so I would say having some self-awareness, and an awareness of your partner and having really frank, honest conversations about all that stuff is super important before you even go into a partnership, because not only do you need to know who you are and where your strengths and weaknesses may lie and how your partner aligns with or complements some of those things. A business involves operations and finance and marketing and sales and all sorts of other stuff that starting on day one, I mean, you and I built our website. The website that people go to our website right now and look at it, primarily you and I built that.
Yeah.
And it'll get better someday, but it's good enough for now. And we kept our books on a Google Sheet for a long time until we got QuickBooks Online. And I'm a big fan personally of bootstrapping a business and doing most of the work yourself to the extent you can, so you can appreciate it and learn it and understand it and save money and all of that. But you need to be honest with where the first priorities are for, okay, as soon as we can afford to, this probably needs to be a place where we get some help. Or I forget how we did it exactly, Brandon, but what did we do? We kicked in $1,000 or something like that each to the business and said, yeah, we need some help on day one with designing a logo and just getting some basic stuff. We got to file for an LLC and all of that.
Yep.
You really have to step back. And if you already own a business and you're looking to bring in a partner, I think you really have to look at all facets of your business, not just the obvious stuff or the places where you're like, dang, I really need some help in sales and marketing. So I need to get a partner in here who can go out and really do business development and sell. That may be true, but if that person's going to be your business partner, they need to understand and have an awareness of the entire business. And you're going to have to then navigate forward, figuring all that stuff out. So I just can't emphasize that enough. Get it all on the table, get into the corners of your business and really think hard about when this thing goes, if we become partners, no kidding, what will this look like on a day-to-day, week-to-week basis?
Yeah. And we set up in progress reviews. We set up weekly meetings. We set up weekly biz dev meetings. We do the things that we know how to do, having built successful businesses in the past. And I would say that it's important to note that we did that from the beginning. We took this seriously from the beginning and said, look, I don't want this to be a side hustle. I'm not interested in looking for a side hustle. I want this to be the next 20 years. I hope it's the next 20 years. And there's so many aspects of this as we're talking about it that I'm just reminded of. I'm reminded of the fact that we did not do this unilaterally, so to speak, in each family either. We did this with Kelly and with Jenny. We brought Kelly and Jenny into the conversation. We for Kelly and I, we prayed about this diligently and regularly and asked of the Lord to give us guidance. Is this the right move for us? Is this and we had so many neat things happen that just kind of showed us like, okay, like that's another green light. I'm going to take another, step through this. I think another thing to mention is that we had friends and mentors who helped us along the way and were willing to give us some of their time and some of their expertise and some of their thoughts. I think of guys like Jan Rutherford, who was just very kind and has always been, a supportive friend and mentor to us, and said, absolutely, like, let's book some time. Let's talk about it. Here's some things that you might want to think about. Here's my rate sheet. Here's how I do things. People who don't have to do anything like that, which I know, we're very generous with our time in that regard as well, because honestly, it's just, we just feel like it's a blessing. It's the right thing to do. We get to help other people, and just considering that, and considering, some of that feedback was also just really, really valuable, really helpful, and something that we did a lot of, and we still do to this day, obviously, is really bring both of our perspectives together, and remind each other and ourselves of what we're doing. And we have a bit of a motto that emerged from, frankly, we talked about some of this language back in the RWB days, but we really talked about it a lot over, quad coffees at Bodega in Tampa, which I think I'm still buzzing from. But, we have these two axioms that we consistently remember, which is we bet on ourselves and we walk in faith. And I think that's really important, because whenever you do decide to have a partner, and if anything else, I hope anyone listening has learned, do the work, really do the work. Don't assume, but really do the work and figure out, is this the right move? Is this the right move for me right now? All of that kind of stuff. And then it's go time. Make your move,
Yeah, I think we used to always say too, we don't ask for permission. That was maybe the more blunt way of saying some of this, right?
That's right.
If we know it's right, we do it, and we don't need anyone to tell us that it's okay, that we're allowed to start a business or be involved in a particular space. I want to layer in a couple other things too that I've just thought of as you were speaking about partnership. And I think this may not be true for all people, and everyone views business a little differently, but I would say, if I were choosing a partner, I would only choose a partner for whom I would value the partnership over the business. And I think that's really important. And I think you and I have really tried to express that to one another throughout our entire partnership, whether it's one of us just kind of picking up the slack and carrying the tripod when somebody's on vacation or sick or beat down otherwise, or whether it's when we look at, compensation or other things. Like we've tried really hard all along the way to put our partnership first and trust that the health of the business will follow a healthy partnership. And I think that's really been true. I think the way that we've thought together, created together, the way we present together and make space for one another, that has been super important for us in our particular business. I think respecting one another and valuing our friendship and our partnership as the paramount thing, and just having trust and faith that that's going to lead to good business outcomes, has really been successful for us. And there are plenty of opportunities along the way where you could want to take a little more than your share, or you feel like you're giving a little more than your share, or your partner's crushing it and you can feel a little less than because, you might like to have a little more of the stage. There's opportunity for all that stuff to go on in every kind of partnership.
Yep.
And we're not immune to any of that, but I don't think we've struggled with much of it because we've looked at it a bit differently. And I'm remembering now, I guess maybe my first real business partnership was I bought a condo down in Fort Myers, Florida after the housing crash in like 2008 or 9 with one of my best high school friends, Roger Price, just an amazing dude. And we saw the housing crash and we didn't have much money to speak of. I was still in the Army, But we just were talking one day and we're like, dude, we should buy a little piece of property down there because the bubble burst and everything's super cheap. Like we should get something. And we agreed before we went in on buying this little condo that if something happened to either one of us or one of us fell on hard times or something, that we would just do what we needed to do to make things right and not screw each other, basically, because we were friends first. And in 2012, I got divorced. And like all four of us, all spouses were on the deed and all the stuff. And I was having to split all my assets and all this. And then the condo was not a major financial drag, but it wasn't exactly making money. Mm-hmm. And I remember calling Roger up and saying, hey, man, I've looked at kind of our losses over the last couple of years and what the next year or so looks like. And I got to get this off my balance sheet. What if I were just to pay you like $7,000 or something to basically cover my half of the losses for the next 2 years, and you just take this property? Would you be willing to do that? And he said, no problem, dude. And we're still friends. You know, he ended up being in Jenny and I's wedding and all of that. And that's the kind of partnership I would want to be in. So I've been very lucky in having those kinds of partnerships, and I've seen how well they work. And again, you don't have to do this. Every partnership is different. Everyone thinks about business a bit differently.
Sure.
But I would say if you're looking for someone to come in and rocket boost your business or just shore up your weaknesses, and you're looking at it in that way, it could potentially be problematic because every business has hard days. You're going to have crucible moments. You're going to have forks in the road. And I think if you can't value the partnership as the primary thing, it can get pretty ugly pretty quickly.
Yeah, I think so. And I think you point out a good aspect of this, which is you may very well get down the road of exploring a partnership and decide maybe this isn't a good idea. Maybe this isn't actually what I want. And that's okay. You know, there's nothing wrong with that. We have plenty of friends and fellow business owners who have been so blunt as to say, like, you know what, I tried the partnership thing, and I've had somebody say I just didn't want to split the revenue, and so it felt better. I've had other people say I just wanted to kind of do my own thing, and it felt good for me just to do my thing. There's nothing wrong with that. Like you have to decide what works best for your approach. I happen to know that for us, that doesn't work best. We're not interested in that. Like, I mean, if we can't do this together, it just doesn't seem worth doing, honestly. And I know you mentioned this earlier, and I'll pick up on it just a little bit, that, like everything we create, everything we write, we create together. And, for any of my strengths, as a creative or a writer or a speaker or anything like that, I'm exponentially better together than on my own, and it's just not, it's not fun, and it's not worth it. And I think that the people that we're trying to serve get a better product. I can say that for myself. I think we can say that from our vantage point, while respecting the fact that, there may very well be folks out there who that just don't feel the same, and that's okay. Yeah. And I guess
1 + 1 = 3 in that case, right? I mean, we're not splitting the work. We want to have a 1 + 1 = 3 type situation. That's important to us, I think.
Yeah, that is how we want to live our lives. Period. Yeah. And once you get to that place, I said earlier, you got to kind of like shoot your shot, right? For whatever this is worth. I don't know how many people we talk to, and we have these consistent conversations over and over, and have to remind people, at some point you have to actually just put it out there. Hang a website, hang a post on LinkedIn, do what you're going to do, right? And don't let perfection be the enemy of progress, because you just don't know how it's going to turn out. And that's why, we keep reminding ourselves, like, we're not asking anybody for permission, and we're going to walk in faith and see how this rolls. So that's it. Yeah, that's how it happened.
Yeah, I don't know that we could wrap this one up in a tight little bow. I hope that's been helpful for people. I really enjoy having this conversation. I could have it all day, but let us know if you have more questions. We field lots of emails and phone calls on this stuff, and we're happy to chat with anybody. So grab us if you can. And if you have questions for future episodes, we want to hear those too. So send them to contact@appliedleadershippartners.com. We'll look at all of them. We'll hopefully get them here on the show. We love hearing from you guys, and we'll talk to you again soon.